What's up, guys? Don't forget to smash that like button, drop a comment, hype up the video, and if you're new here, hit that subscribe and join the family. The story begins with a student complaining that he doesn't understand why, in a place where everyone is desperate to evolve their supernatural powers, they still have to deal with tests and assignments every single day. A girl explains that it's part of basic education, because not everyone will be able to live off special abilities in the future, and she reminds him that there are students who can barely afford extra study books, relying on official designations once they enter the military academy. A friend comments about the skill books distributed for free and says that for some people, life seems far too easy, since his own family spent a fortune to obtain a single copy. The boy replies that there's nothing to envy, as they are valuable abilities offered through public distribution. And he points out that if it weren't for the requirement of 2 mandatory years at the military academy after graduation, many would never have the chance to awaken powers in their lives. The other student argues that if there's anyone worth envying, it's those who were born with powers, the true chosen ones, and that if they hadn't shared part of those abilities in the past, no one would have been able to become supernatural through books. The boy recalls that there was no choice since the Dalki were already attacking at the time. The girl says that just thinking about it makes her afraid and assures them she has no intention of going to the battlefield in the future, leaving that decision to whoever wants it. While they talk, a young woman stands still nearby, observing something with unusual attention, becoming even more interested when she notices a certain movement. Not far away, another boy walks with his friends and explains that his father has already arranged his future, saying that if he reaches level 5 in his enhancement ability during the military academy, he will inherit the family business, which specializes in armor and weapons for beasts. Suddenly, several students turn their attention to Rayleigh, commenting that he is even more handsome in person than in pictures, and speculating about which military academy he will be assigned to. The girl who had been standing still gathers her courage and asks for a moment of his time. Rayleigh asks if she needs something, and she replies that it's nothing important. She just wanted to know if he would be free for dinner that night. He says he has no plans. At that moment, someone shouts for Quinn to stop running. Quinn keeps running and raises his middle finger, asking if they can see how many fingers he's holding up, calling the others trash. The boys chase him furiously, saying he's asking to die. Quinn keeps the gesture with irony, claiming he's trembling in fear until he bumps into someone and falls to the ground. The girl approaches and asks if he's okay, but her eyes widen when the 2 men begin beating him relentlessly, tears filling her eyes. Rayleigh releases part of his power and pulls Quinn away. The attackers complain that it's the last day and he's still causing trouble, telling him to watch where he's going and saying he was lucky Rayleigh made a move, because normally he wouldn't even get close. Rayleigh asks how his leg is, while the girl admits she didn't even manage to see what really happened. Quinn thinks that this repeats every day and wonders if those girls never get tired of the spectacle. Around them, some comment that they miss the best part and try to remember his name, something like Quile or Quilo, but say that in the end it doesn't matter, since he never awakened any power and is just a useless parasite living off subsidies, someone who avoids anything that might highlight his weakness even more. In this era, they say, not awakening powers is almost like an original sin. Quinn reflects that before he can even think about facing the Dalki, he already has to deal with discrimination inside his own school. A broadcast echoes across the area announcing that the day marks the 5th anniversary of the peace treaty and ceasefire with the Dalki people, reminding everyone that despite the period of peaceful development, certain regions of the world remain unstable, and asking people of all races and territories to maintain mutual understanding and support in order to avoid new tensions. Quinn thinks that he must report to the military academy the next day, and that if he still fails to master some kind of supernatural power, nothing in his life will truly change. The protagonist enters the room and stares at the skill books in front of him, and that sight sends his mind back 6 years to the day someone knocked on the door, asking if that was the residence of Quinn Talun. He said yes and asked who they were. The man standing there introduced himself as an official agent from the Special Operations Unit, and regretfully informed him that his parents had died in the war against the Dalki, sacrificed in battle. After investigation, no relatives or guardians were found to take him in, so until he reached adulthood, the government would cover his tuition and housing. In addition, they had left him an inheritance, not in money, but in that book, which might have some value, and it was up to him to decide whether to sell it or keep it, asking only that he sign the papers. That day, the boy held the book tightly. In the present, Quinn wonders why his parents insisted on going to the battlefield, leaving him alone in the world, and all that remained was that book he had never managed to open. He forces the cover once again, but nothing happens, and he concludes that perhaps he needs to go to the military academy to receive an official designation. Deep down, he wishes they had left at least a photograph, because he can barely remember their faces. Suddenly, his nose starts bleeding and a few drops fall onto the book. He grabs a tissue and complains that he must have strained too much, wiping the cover and feeling relieved that it didn't stain until he notices something has changed. The book begins to glow and opens on its own. Quinn becomes excited, feeling intense energy swirling around him, and asks what's happening when that force invades his head. The aura grows in a frightening way. He screams as the energy pierces his mind until everything falls into absolute silence. His body collapses to the floor, his head throbbing, and a cold voice congratulates him on obtaining the vampire physique. He barely has time to process it before losing consciousness. Old memories surface, boys playing ball and him asking to join, only to be pushed away in disgust and called a troublesome child without a mother. The image shifts to his parents' funeral, a suffocating weight in his chest, confused and painful recollections. Suddenly, he wakes up to someone banging on the door and threatening to count to 3 before breaking it down. Quinn rushes to open it and finds Sergeant Griff, who demands to know why he took so long. He answers that he overslept. The sergeant orders him to grab his things and get on the bus within 2 minutes, because he won't tolerate delays. Quinn hurriedly packs everything, confused about how he slept until morning, remembering that he had been studying the book the night before and wondering where it went. He believes he managed to open it, but when he looks to the side, he sees his broken glasses and concludes he will need new ones. When he tests his vision, he realizes he can see clearly and wonders if his nearsightedness has disappeared. The sergeant shouts again, asking how much longer he plans to wait, and he runs to the bus. Inside, he finds an empty seat, but Rayleigh says it's taken. The other seats also seem unavailable, and Quinn thinks his bad luck continues. Rayleigh asks if there's a problem until another boy calls out to him and offers a seat beside him. Quinn thanks him. Thinking the guy seems friendly, the boy says he's the class representative, and Quinn introduces himself as well. At that moment, an internal notification appears saying that heart capacity has been rejected. He wonders what that means and why he can't properly see the message. The representative notices his reaction, apologizes, and asks what his powers are. Quinn admits he hasn't awakened any yet and asks why he's asking. The representative comments that it's the first time he has met someone in that situation, since at their age, everyone should already control some ability. The sergeant, annoyed by the noise, orders everyone to be quiet and asks if they think this is a picnic, threatening to review the military academy rules right there. The bus sinks into an awkward silence while Quinn remains quiet, trying to understand what truly awakened inside him. Quinn thinks that the interface had been flickering before his eyes just moments ago, and begins to suspect that everything is connected to the skill book he opened the night before. The system displays his status bar, and he feels as if countless pieces of information have been poured directly into his mind. It's hard to believe that the book simply merged with his body like that, and he starts to wonder if this means he has finally awakened some kind of supernatural power. What kind of ability would it be if the screens themselves show nothing truly decisive? Beside him, the class representative watches him without understanding his strange expression. Suddenly, the bus stops and smoke begins to rise from the front. Quinn stands up, trying to understand what's happening, when the system issues an alert stating that his body is being directly hit by sunlight. He notices that one of his attributes has been reduced by half. The status bar appears again. Quickly, he closes the curtain by the window and concludes that even simple exposure to the sun weakens him, realizing that this new ability may be far too dangerous. At least he feels that he can recover, but he understands that he will need to avoid the sun from now on. The class representative asks what happened, saying he looks terrible. Quinn replies that it's nothing. Maybe he just didn't sleep well. The representative suggests he drink some water and rest, since the trip will still take a while. Quinn thanks him, but as soon as he drinks, he ends up spitting it all onto the back of the student in front of him. The sergeant asks why he's shouting and whether he thinks that's funny. The boy tries to explain, but Griff doesn't want to listen and orders him to squat right there. The student in front complains that it was the fault of the one behind him. Quinn thinks that even drinking water has become a complicated mission. The class representative tells him not to choke again. He reflects that he has never heard of a skill book like his. Normally, superpowers revolve around a single ability that is improved through constant study of its corresponding book. His, however, works like a game, full of screens and notifications, and so far, aside from improved eyesight, he hasn't noticed any concrete change. Quinn tries to speak to the class representative, but he's already asleep, even drooling. He finds it strange, because it seems like everyone on the bus has fallen asleep. The system then alerts him about an abnormal substance detected in the air. The sergeant comments that some seem to be resisting the sleeping gas, and orders them to increase the intensity on that boy. Quinn begins to struggle to keep his eyes open. When he wakes again, he is somewhere else. The class representative says he can sleep peacefully, and Quinn asks where they are. The representative believes they have already arrived at the military academy, but admits he also just woke up and doesn't really understand what happened. Irene is there. Layla comments that the fifth one has awakened, and Peter greets the others, who look at each other in confusion. The test administrator, Jane, observes that the group has awakened and states that they may begin the test. A hooded boy explains that this is the superpower assessment before official entry into the academy, and that when their names are called, they must step forward. The first is Peter, and Quinn thinks starting with a test is too early, especially when he doesn't even understand his own abilities. Jane tells Peter not to be nervous and asks what his power is. He admits he has none. Layla is surprised, asking if there are still people without abilities. The class representative says it's fine, that there is still time to awaken. Quinn realizes he isn't the only one in that situation. Jane states there's no problem, that he can accept that for now and will still receive a superpower. Peter asks if it's being given for free. She answers yes and provisionally classifies him as a level 1 user, handing him a book to study in his free time and retake the test after learning to use it. Quinn notices a bracelet on his wrist and asks when that was put on him. Layla explains that everyone received one, that personal information is recorded there, and that it serves as an access card to the campus and to pay for meals. The class representative comments that it seems practical. Jane then calls Talon and he realizes it's his turn. The administrator asks what his ability is. Quinn notices that she already has his information on the bracelet, yet she insists on asking. He answers that he has no ability. A book is summoned before him and Jane states that he can also start with that. The system issues a notification suggesting that he learned a skill. Quinn reflects that each person can only awaken a single ability, and since he never managed to acquire another, that must mean he is already officially a user. He begins to consider whether that book could be converted into experience points, feeling a dangerous curiosity, but soon imagines the endless interrogation he would face if he did something out of the ordinary there. He decides to refuse and thanks her. Jane asks if he's sure, reminding him that the book is being offered for free and that if he loses this opportunity, he will have to figure everything out on his own. Talon replies that he understands and will handle it himself. The administrator asks for a moment and, through her communicator, reports that there is an unusual case, a student refusing to accept the skill book. A voice on the other side asks whether he belongs to the pure blood group. Jane replies that there is no sign of that since the records show no special talent nor the use of beast armor. The voice orders them to test his potential and, if he is just an ordinary person, to let him follow his own path, as the world itself will teach him. Jane returns, apologizes for the wait, and explains that since he refused the book, they will proceed directly to the test. In the arena, she instructs him to destroy 3 targets in the shortest time possible. Quinn feels weak, his vision blurred, imagining that sunlight is draining his attributes, but he decides to give it his all. He strikes the first target, and the recorded strength is 5. Jane thinks he is truly weak. He continues, enduring the discomfort of the brightness, and his agility also registers 5. The administrator declares the test concluded and states that his physical conditioning is equivalent to that of a level 1 user. Quinn notices that the numbers are identical to those displayed by the system, and concludes that if he manages to increase those internal attributes, he may also strengthen his physical body. Remaining under the sun, however, is unbearable. The next name is called. The class representative tries to encourage him, saying he still has 2 years to evolve. Quinn comments that for him, it is far more comfortable to remain in the shadows. Jane calls Layla and asks what her ability is. She answers that it is Nen. The class representative observes that she then possesses a supernatural power and admits he thought she was pure blood. Quinn asks what that means, and the representative explains that so-called pure bloods reject supernatural powers, believing that the current obsession with abilities has distorted society's values and deepened social division. Therefore, they dedicate themselves to developing beast armor and training the body to the extreme, facing the Dalki with human strength alone. Quinn understands that this is why he confused her, since he saw her using arrows made from beast bones. Layla completes the test and is classified as level 2. She protests, saying that at school she was considered level 3. Jane clarifies that her archery skill indeed reached level 3, but one of the targets was destroyed manually with an average power of 8, which lowers her overall evaluation. She adds that there will be many more testing opportunities in the future. Next, Irene is called. The class representative approaches and places a hand on her shoulder, but she demands that he remove it immediately. He tries again, and his hand freezes instantly. Irene warns that if he repeats that, it won't be just that. Impressed, the representative comments that it's an ice-type ability, which explains her cold and distant behavior. Jane confirms that her ability is ice and authorizes the test to begin. Quinn observes that one should not touch people without permission, and concludes that she is definitely not someone to joke around with. The representative tries to keep his composure, saying he is not the type to harass pretty girls, but Irene has already activated her power, freezing the targets in front of everyone. Jane announces that the test has been completed and classifies Irene as a level 5 user, the third at that level among all the trainees that day. Peter comments that it's impressive, And Quinn agrees, recalling that at their previous school, the highest level reached had only been 4. Layla, however, asks what's so extraordinary about it and claims she will surpass her soon enough. Next, it is Director Feng's turn. A loud boom echoes through the testing area and he moves with absurd speed, eliminating the targets in mere moments. The administrator remarks that they seem to be lucky again, declaring him a guard, a level 5 ability user. Feng looks at Talun and asks what he thought. Quinn replies that it's incredible, and states that his ability allows him to copy powers simply by touching someone's body. The director laughs and says he was exposed too quickly, that he intended to keep it secret a bit longer, and asks how he figured it out. Quinn explains that when they shook hands, he showed surprise, which indicated he failed to copy his ability, and when his hand was frozen by Irene, it became clear he didn't control ice-type powers. Analyzing everything, that was the only possible conclusion. Feng admits he didn't expect such sharp perception from someone who doesn't even possess a superpower. Quinn finds it strange because from that angle, his body seemed to react passively to prevent the copy, which makes him question what his true ability actually is. Irene asks if he is a natural ability user, one of those born with superpowers who, according to legend, were the original source of all currently recorded abilities. The director jokes for them to guess, promising only one prize for whoever gets it right, but Irene says that's boring. Jane declares the end of the tests and informs them that they may now proceed to the military academy. The books must be placed in the transport compartment along with their luggage, and a professor will be responsible for receiving them. Peter asks if that place is really the academy, commenting that it looks like a busy city. They descend through a capsule into an underground area filled with people. Comments about levels echo everywhere, and Quinn and Peter realize that the hierarchy is even more evident there, with level 1 students occupying the base of the pyramid. A boy recognizes Rayleigh and greets him, saying they studied at the same school and that it's rare to meet again like this, inviting him to dinner later. Rayleigh apologizes, claiming he has no time. On the other side, several girls surround Irene, introducing themselves and trying to get closer, clearly impressed by her level 5 status. Peter observes that everyone wants to be friends with those in superior positions, and Quinn agrees, stating that the environment isn't much different from the outside world. Professor Dell approaches and orders silence, instructing boys and girls to form separate lines to draw their dormitory numbers. Whoever receives a number can take their luggage. Peter asks where the director went, and Quinn replies that he didn't notice, probably being surrounded by others. After all, he is also level 5. The students begin checking their numbers. A boy approaches Quinn and asks what his is. Upon hearing that it's 12, he says he's lucky and suggests a swap so they can both benefit, grabbing his number and quickly leaving. Peter sighs, commenting that, as expected, no one wants to share a dorm with someone like him, and apologizes for dragging him into it. He soon adds that they shouldn't be discouraged since life at the academy is just beginning and everyone will have a chance to grow. Feng approaches and says he'll check who else is in dorm 23, like him. Peter comments that it's a coincidence. The director replies that it's destiny and that they'll have 2 interesting years ahead. Peter, moved, says it's good to know he doesn't despise him. Meanwhile, in another corner, 2 students talk about a dormitory that was robbed. One asks how someone could act so boldly and says they'll find whoever did it and recover what was taken. The other replies that if they manage to, it will be pure luck because the suspect is a level 5 user. Back at the dorm, Feng comments that they have the rest of the day free and asks where they plan to go afterward. Peter says he prefers to stay and study the skill book before anything else. The director agrees and asks about Talun. Quinn replies that he plans to go to the library, thinking he needs to understand his ability as soon as possible, and hoping to find material that helps him decipher what truly awakened within him. Feng says he'll go along, mentioning that it's been a while since he picked up a book and that it's the perfect opportunity, since he also needs to study a lot. The library is full, but Quinn finds it strange that everyone moves their lips and he can't hear any conversations. Feng explains that he came from a public school and that they probably didn't have that kind of equipment there. By touching the device installed on the table, a soundproof space is created, allowing those inside to talk normally without disturbing others. Talun comments that it's the first time he's seen something like that and that technology has really advanced a lot. Feng asks what kind of information he's looking for and reminds him that there are books of all kinds there. Quinn replies that he refused the free skill book offered by the school and wants to find out what extraordinary powers are currently available. Maybe he'll find something that suits him better. Feng says he understands and remarks that he thought Quinn wanted to become a pure-blood member, someone who doesn't wish to serve as a watchdog for the army. Quinn asked what that means, and Feng explains that the military isn't as generous as it seems when distributing free skill books because everyone who accepts will end up following orders in the future. If they are sent to war, at best they'll be flatterers, but in practice, they'll function as cheap human shields. Talun falls silent, remembering how happy Peter was when he received the book and wondering whether he realizes that. He takes the chance to ask if Feng has ever heard of an ability that weakens under sunlight. Feng finds the question strange and says that some people are weak because they can't properly control their abilities, or because they have specific limitations. But losing strength because of sunlight sounds like something from vampires, not humans. Quinn replies that it makes sense. Later, after finishing one of the books, he realizes that none of the records mention anything similar to his situation, while Feng is already asleep at the table. Talun decides to search the upper shelves and ends up in the fantasy and general knowledge section. A novel about a red dragon reincarnated in human form catches his attention. He thinks it's interesting, but remembers that dragons and vampires are legendary creatures. As dinner time approaches, he decides to read a bit more before leaving. Flipping through another book, he finds descriptions of vampires who drink human blood, transform into bats, and use illusions, as well as those specialized in fencing or hypnosis, forming a structured system of abilities far more powerful than his own. The only similarity he identifies is the weakening under sunlight. The system then notifies him that he has gained greater understanding, granting experience. Quinn is startled and begins to consider whether his ability might truly be related to vampires. Soon, only the distant sound of running water interrupts his thoughts. Feng wakes up in the library, looks around, and realizes it's already late, asking whether Quinn left without saying anything. Meanwhile, Talun keeps reading, becoming increasingly convinced that it might be real. The system notifies him that he has deepened his understanding and unlocked an optional quest. When he checks, the task appears: drink the blood of a human. Quinn thinks that, according to legends, vampires suffer when feeding, but the system hasn't forced him to do anything yet. He notes that completing quests may yield special rewards, while daily ones offer basic experience points. He also realizes that any exposure to the sun, whether at noon or at dusk, reduces his attributes. The status bar appears again. He calculates that by completing only daily quests, it will take about 3 weeks to level up, which is slow but inevitable, and he becomes curious about what changes will occur after evolving. On the other side of campus, Peter apologizes, saying he bumped into someone by accident. Quinn recognizes his classmate as a level 2 boy, pushes him, and states that apologies solve nothing, asking how he intends to compensate. Peter admits he doesn't have much money. The aggressor says he doesn't understand a word he's saying and threatens to beat him. Quinn watches the scene and thinks it's too much arrogance for someone at level 2. People who only intimidate those below them, something truly disgusting. Talun steps forward and strikes him, saying he tripped by accident. The boy, irritated, asks if he doesn't watch where he's going. Quinn apologizes with irony and says he has a tendency to fall even on flat ground. The other notices he's also level 1 and complains that today he only runs into trash. If he doesn't want to suffer, he should pay properly. Quinn replies that he just arrived at the new school and thought it would take a few days before meeting someone who pretends to be tough, but backs down at the decisive moment. He didn't expect one to appear so soon. The boy asks what he's proposing. The system alerts that an enemy ability has been activated. Talun thinks about combat mode and wonders if he's really going to fight, but concludes it's the perfect opportunity to test his limits in a real battle. Besides, there's a reward of 50 experience points. If he wins, leveling up will be within reach. He declares that if the other wants a fight, he'll go all the way. Peter panics, asking if he's lost his mind provoking someone like that. The aggressor summons tiger claws and charges, but Quinn manages to dodge and counterattack. The boy is surprised, thinking he doesn't look like a level 1. Maybe his strength has already reached level 2, even if he fails in other attributes. Quinn assesses that it's a transformation-type ability focused on close combat, which gives him a chance. In the previous test, someone with strength 8 was already classified as level 2. Without exposure to the sun, all his attributes show 10. He should be at least equivalent to level 2. In a direct clash, he won't lose so easily. Even so, the opponent manages to cut him, concluding that his agility isn't enough. He cuts him again, and Peter grows distressed. The system displays the health bar, and Talun calculates that the sun will set soon. The opponent charges once more, causing a violent explosion. Moments later, the system notifies status recovery. The boy is stunned, asking how he escaped at that speed. Quinn advances and declares that now it's his turn. The aggressor tries to negotiate, asking to talk, but Talun keeps going. The boy spits blood, severely injured. Peter watches in disbelief, asking if he truly has no power at all. Quinn smiles inwardly, recognizing the vampiric power. The system congratulates him for completing a mission, granting experience, an additional reward, and unlocking a skill. He realizes he unlocks something new and combat mode is deactivated. Peter, frightened, asks if the other will die. Talun tells him not to worry. He doesn't have enough strength for that. He only wanted to ensure they won't be bothered again. Peter admits he was terrified seeing him face a level 2 head-on. Quinn wonders if the scout ability allows him to identify weaknesses and decides to test it later. Peter notices his arm is still bleeding and suggests they go to the infirmary. Quinn realizes some system information remains hidden, perhaps visible only at a higher level, but notes that identifying blood types is convenient for a vampire. He catches himself wondering whether different types have distinct flavors and scolds himself for the thought. Peter insists they should leave before anyone notices. Talun agrees. The blood spread across the ground catches his attention. Peter asks if the wound is okay and suggests at least disinfecting it. Quinn replies that it's superficial and no longer bleeding, watching the cuts close on their own. Peter asks what happened, and he says he'll go to the infirmary just in case, to avoid infection. He needs to stop by the dorm first. Peter offers to accompany him, but Talun refuses, saying he can manage and asking him to check if the director has returned, since they separated and he might be worried. Peter agrees. Elsewhere, Quinn notices the wound has completely disappeared. The system informs him that HP has been restored and that his hunger has increased. He concludes the system heals his injuries through feeding and begins looking nearby for somewhere to get food. At the entrance to the training field, a voice comments that she finally found him. Inside the room, targets are pierced by successive arrows. Layla ends the training, saying that's enough for today, but then notices someone and wonders if that isn't the boy without extraordinary powers, asking why he came to the training center and whether he intends to redo the strength test. Talun selects normal difficulty and places his shirt in the corner. Layla thinks he must have been dissatisfied with his previous result, maybe too ambitious, and decides to watch. Quinn advances and strikes the target with a punch. Strength 10. Layla is surprised, wondering how someone classified as level 1 can achieve that. It's not only strength, he also demonstrates high agility. The targets remain static, and he continues attacking, finishing the test with agility 10. Talun realizes he eliminated all of them before his shirt even touched the ground. Layla begins to suspect he deliberately hid his strength and wants to understand why. In the academy cafeteria, students eat in separated groups. A bald boy blocks an empty seat to prevent others from sitting there. The girls comment that maybe it's better to leave. The boys retreat with their trays in hand, saying those inside are too high level and it's better to avoid trouble. Peter remarks that high-level students stay inside the restaurant while low-level ones remain outside. Quinn observes that he doesn't need to limit himself to his own group. He could socialize with people from other levels. Fang tells him to stop with that idea, saying he hates that stupid hierarchical mindset. They're friends and can eat in peace. Nothing is more important than filling their stomachs right now. Layla watches the scene from a distance. Later, in theoretical class, the professor explains that without the altruistic sharing of natural ability users, the New World Order would never have arisen. Although they live in relatively peaceful times, no one knows when war might resume. That's why they are at the military academy, to learn and prepare. There, everyone must strive to improve transcendent power, because level is the main proof of value. Quinn reflects that the Guardian ability is extremely convenient, since it allows copying high-level powers, and wonders whether copied abilities can be improved by the user himself. He decides to use the recognition ability to investigate further, and asks if it can be displayed. He asks Feng whether he can use Irene's ability at that moment. Feng laughs and says he's too perceptive, revealing a secret. Copied abilities reset daily, so unless he touches Irene again, he won't be able to use them. Talun concludes that seemingly perfect abilities always have hidden limitations and advises him not to try anything reckless, since Irene isn't someone easy to deal with. Feng thanks him for the concern and jokes that if he and Peter helped, he'd have less difficulty choosing whom to copy in the next test. Quinn apologizes, saying he can't help. Feng asks if he's still hungry, reminding him he just ate enough for 2 people. Talun comments that maybe he has accelerated digestion and begins worrying about the costs if it continues like that. Feng decides to go to the bathroom and arranges to meet later at the convenience store. Down below, some boys discuss that Rayleigh wants 50 points by the weekend. If they don't want to get beaten, they'll have to pay. They spot Quinn and Peter. Peter whispers that it's the boy from yesterday and that this time he brought accomplices. The others mock them, saying it's a coincidence to find the only 2 level 1 trash in the school without supernatural abilities. Peter asks if he came back for revenge. Quinn replies that it wouldn't make sense because if others found out, he himself would end up intimidated. The leader tells them to wait, asking each to lend 10 points, claiming they urgently need them and are being generous by asking only that. Peter says it's the maximum he can spare to cover his monthly expenses. Talun stares at the boy and asks whether he even knows him and why he should hand anything over, questioning whether he truly believes he'll give in so easily. The blonde who was beaten the day before is sweating coldly while the other 2 insist it's just alone and ask if they didn't hear the explanation. The blonde finally tells them to forget it, saying he already managed to gather enough. Feng steps in casually, saying he has plenty of points and asking why they don't borrow from him instead. He says he can lend them some, but the interest would be high, then asks if they really need it. The 3 panic, thank him for his generosity, and begin backing away, claiming it was all a misunderstanding and that they're friends now. Feng grabs them by the collar and tells them not to leave so fast, that they still need to talk. A cold voice interrupts, asking who is intimidating someone else's subordinates. It's Mo, accompanied by Rayleigh. Quinn feels a dangerous aura and realizes his level is 6. The atmosphere falls silent for a moment. Mo says the subordinates may leave and they run without looking back. Feng comments that they should also go eat before the food runs out. Mo interrupts, saying he didn't authorize their departure and asks if they plan to leave without even saying goodbye, stating that low-level people don't even show basic respect. Feng asks if he needs anything else. Mo replies that he heard rumors about him just days after his arrival, that there's a high-level newcomer who spends time with low-level people. Feng asks if he broke any rules. Mo says no, that associating with whoever he wants is personal freedom, but reminds him that there are unwritten rules in the school. He says that when someone treats human trash as if it's useful, they start thinking they're equals. In a world where only the strong deserve to survive, some mistake kindness for equality. He declares he looks forward to the next battle, since war is the best way to eliminate those who shouldn't be there. Quinn remembers the day the military announced his parents' deaths in the war and feels anger at those words. A flash explodes in the air as he lunges with a punch, but Rayleigh blocks and counterattacks with brutal force, throwing them back. Rayleigh comments that he never learns, calling him a loser. Mo asks if he truly believes he can face them and accuses him of overestimating himself. Feng tries to strike with a clenched fist, but Mo dodges with impressive ease. Feng is stunned by the level gap. Quinn realizes he acted on impulse and that Feng has no chance against them. Mo states he doesn't intend to fight now and that this was only a friendly warning. He says there are people in the school even the military wouldn't dare touch, so they'd better be careful or they might end up dead without even understanding why. Elsewhere on campus, Peter asks if that's serious. If nothing is really policed at the academy, Quinn admits it seems that way. Feng explains the school doesn't intervene because the system benefits from it. In that environment, the only way for the weak to seek strength is by joining the army. Talun adds that this way they receive resources and protection, but in exchange must go to the battlefield when called. He then asks Feng to keep his distance from them from now on. Feng questions why, asking if they're simply giving up because of threats. Quinn says he knows Feng wants to help, but there are forces they can't fight. If they challenge the implicit rules, they might not be able to punish him directly, but they themselves will become the target. Feng insists he can protect them. Quinn says that if he distances himself, everyone will be safer. Peter agrees and apologizes. Feng tells them to stop, says they can do whatever they want, and walks away visibly irritated. Peter remarks that he seems hurt and that maybe they should explain better. Talun replies that maybe it's better this way. From afar, Rayleigh watches the scene in silence. In another part of campus, Feng walks alone, frustrated, saying he can't do anything, that everything feels like a waste of time, and he doesn't even know what he really wants anymore. He questions what difference it makes to understand it, since in the end, everything always ends the same way, and no one seems to understand him. He says he doesn't care what others think, and that he'll never let those people get what they want easily. Elsewhere, Rayleigh throws Quinn and Peter aside, saying, useless resistance only wastes time, that they're low level with few points, so they should learn to be more careful. Quinn thinks that in the end, it always comes down to this and wonders what the difference is from the past. Peter tries to ease things, suggesting that if they pay a little less each time and slowly accumulate points, maybe they won't lose as much. Talun agrees but wonders how long this situation will continue. The system then notifies a new mission: defeat Rayleigh. Quinn assesses that at the moment that's impossible. Another notification appears informing him that a significant level difference has been detected and that once the mission is completed, an extra reward will be granted. He realizes that even with his attributes strengthened outside sunlight, he still can't close the gap with Rayleigh. He needs to evolve quickly. At night in the dorm, Feng comments that they finally returned, that he's been waiting for hours. Peter asks what happened to his face. Feng replies it was just a light argument, that he won easily and there's nothing to worry about, then asks if they had any trouble. They deny it. Feng says next time they can take him along if they're having so much fun. In a low voice, Peter asks if they shouldn't tell the director. Quinn asks him not to worry him. Silence settles for a moment. Talun comments that it's normal. The more expensive the food, the smaller the portions. Not feeling full is common. Feng agrees and suggests going to the convenience store to buy something extra. Quinn hesitates, remembering his balance is nearly empty, and admits he feels embarrassed. Feng insists he accept, saying to consider it an apology for being stubborn earlier. Quinn thanks him. At the convenience store, Talun recognizes two boys who had intimidated others earlier. They comment that the boss told them to spend points quickly, gather everything before he can't protect them, complaining that the other wants to collect everything himself. The system notifies a new mission: defeat any opponent. Quinn realizes the timing is convenient. Facing those two isn't difficult. The hard part is doing it without drawing attention. He decides to observe them first. In another dark corridor, one of the boys notices someone following him. Frightened, he tells the person to show themselves and stop playing around. A hooded, masked figure appears before him. The boy starts screaming. Quinn, disguised, thinks he's far too cowardly and wonders where the other one is. Soon, the second appears and asks who he is. A streak of light cuts through the air. The system displays attributes indicating wind element. Quinn understands it's a speed and air blade ability. The opponent attacks and manages to wound his shoulder, saying he already suspected it was someone seeking revenge for lost points. He claims covering his face changes nothing and orders him to kneel and apologize. Talun quickly analyzes. The style is agile, so defense must be weak. He needs to land at least one hit. The opponent advances and reveals that wind blades aren't limited to his hands. Quinn is struck, but a viscous substance sticks to his palm. He throws the slime into the opponent's eyes, blinding him momentarily, and declares he's going to crush that arrogant face. Then he delivers a direct strike between the opponent's legs, saying he fell into his own trap. The system notifies that the mission has been completed. The boy remains motionless on the ground. Talun looks at the fallen boy and thinks the system is far too stingy. He defeated 2 opponents and received no extra reward. Soon after, a notification appears stating that the experience for that level has reached its limit and asking whether he wishes to level up. He confirms. A shadowy bat materialized by the system appears and bites his neck. Quinn's eyes widen as he lets out an intense scream while a dark aura spreads around him. Outside the store, Layla was leaving, but she senses that energy and stops, looking toward its source. New notifications appear, congratulating him on completing the evolution. He has acquired the Bloodblade skill and evolved into a half-human. Quinn questions whether that can truly be called evolution. He notices that his HP limit has increased, but the experience required for the next level has also risen. The description of the new ability states that he can launch a red blade of blood from his hand, reaching up to 5 meters, consuming his own blood with each use. He comments to himself that he gained an interesting ability, clearly offensive, but soon feels the hunger growing again. The system warns that the thirst for blood can no longer be suppressed. His hunger will increase, and his health points will continue to decrease until he receives a blood supplement. Talun feels the hunger becoming almost unbearable. He approaches the unconscious boy and murmurs that he will only take a small taste. Layla, watching from a distance, misinterprets the scene and wonders what he is doing. Quinn realizes his own intention and abruptly steps back, frightened of himself, questioning whether he was truly about to drink human blood. He concludes that his actions moments ago were beyond his conscious control, like a vampiric instinct surfacing, and decides he needs to leave immediately. Layla, confused, comments that he is acting strangely and decides to follow him discreetly. The system once again notifies that the hunger is intensifying. In another part of the building near the infirmary, Layla continues tracking his steps without him noticing. Layla watches him from hiding and begins to suspect he is injured and looking for treatment, not understanding exactly what he is searching for there. Quinn, meanwhile, rummages through the place in desperation, feeling he can no longer endure the growing hunger while the system fires repeated warnings. When his legs finally give out, Layla runs and catches him before he falls, asking what happened and whether he's sick. She realizes his body is extremely hot, almost as if it is burning. Talun breathes irregularly, leans toward her neck, murmurs an apology, and, driven by instinct, drinks her blood. Layla panics, begins to cry and asks what he is doing, but he only stops when the hunger is satisfied. She grows weak and collapses to the floor. Quinn returns to normal and realizes what he has done. The system notifies that hunger has decreased and health is regenerating. He panics, wondering if he has put her life at risk. He kneels, lifts her in his arms, and asks if she can hear him. Layla tries to speak but can barely make a sound. He notices there are still vital signs and decides to act quickly. He tells her to lie down and runs off to seek help, shouting that someone has fainted. In the infirmary, Layla wakes up. Dr. Haley comments that she is awake and that it does not seem serious, just a mild case of anemia. She prescribes supplements and recommends returning if she does not feel well. Confused, Layla asks what happened and whether she really fainted. The doctor confirms it and adds that her boyfriend was desperate, running around frantically for help. Layla is startled by the word boyfriend. Haley asks if that slightly curly-haired boy is not her boyfriend, since by the way he acted it seemed obvious. Layla replies that he is just a classmate and asks where he is. The doctor says she reassured him and sent him away first. Alone, Layla recalls the bite and begins to wonder whether he could be a vampire. Meanwhile, Quinn feels the hunger vanish and notices his attributes increased after consuming human blood. Lying on his dorm bed, he studies the system, which congratulates him for completing the consumption and strengthening his body. However, a new problem arises: how to obtain a stable source of blood. He admits he has never tasted anything so intense, and starts wondering whether her blood was especially good or if all would be like that. He worries about how to explain it if she tells a professor. He decides he must deny everything at all costs. He considers negotiating with her, perhaps offering something in exchange to become his stable source, but soon realizes he barely has money for himself. He concludes he might have to try his luck at the hospital again. The next day, the teacher ends class and reminds them not to neglect training their powers, as next week there will be combat practice and everyone must review the content and understand the rules. Feng asks what practical class is for, and the teacher explains, it is a group exercise without powers focused on basic combat. Quinn says he wants to eat first because his stomach feels strange and he might go to the infirmary later. Feng jokes that he really should get checked since he has never seen someone get hungry so quickly and says they will buy food for him. Talun reflects that yesterday he lost control and went to the wrong place. If he needs blood, he must obtain it properly, perhaps from the lab where freshly collected material is kept refrigerated. Suddenly someone grabs his arm. It is Layla. She demands an explanation for what he did the day before. Quinn pretends not to understand and asks whether they know each other. Layla tells him to stop pretending. She clearly remembers the bite in the infirmary. He replies it was a misunderstanding. He had a fever and a confused mind. Layla argues that is no excuse because he not only bit her but also sucked her blood. She says she cannot believe someone like that exists at the academy. Talun sighs and says that since she knows everything, there is no point denying it, but assures her he had his reasons. Layla says enough nonsense, that after what he did, it is obvious he does not want anyone to know. So Quinn asks what exactly she wants. She tells him not to be nervous, promises to keep her lips sealed, but demands one condition in return. Quinn asks what it is. With eyes shining in excitement, Layla says she wants him to turn her into a vampire too, and almost begs him to do it. Talun is completely incredulous and asks if she is serious. Layla replies that of course she is, and that he has no idea how excited she is. She explains that her father is a writer, and since childhood she has grown up surrounded by books, reading all kinds of fantasy novels. But her obsession has always been vampires, powerful, mysterious, immortal beings wrapped in darkness and charm. She says she has always found them incredible and deep down always dreamed of becoming one, never imagining she would meet a real one. Quinn tells her to calm down and says, unfortunately, he must disappoint her because he does not have the ability to transform others. The reason he became like this is linked to a skill book. Layla complains that he gives hope only to destroy it mercilessly. Quinn explains that a person can only master one supernatural power in their entire life, and once acquired it, causes irreversible mutations in the body's genes, making it impossible to choose another path afterward. Layla asks why he hid something so important and says he made her believe she had truly found an authentic vampire. Talun replies he has never seen an ability that requires drinking blood to evolve, and that if the military discovers it, he will certainly face endless interrogations. Besides, he admits he still does not fully understand his own ability. Even if pressured now, he would not be able to clearly explain how it works. Layla argues that means he cannot state with absolute certainty that there is no other way to transform her in the future. Talun sighs and says if she wants to interpret it that way, she is not entirely wrong. She smiles excitedly and says she can help him evolve by serving as his blood source without demanding any reward. Only the possibility that if one day there is a chance he will transform her too. Quinn is perplexed and wonders how her brain works so differently from other people's. He says he cannot guarantee anything, but if there is any possibility in the future he may try, as long as she keeps everything in absolute secrecy. At that moment, Peter appears calling him. Quinn asks what happened. Layla comments that it is the boy without abilities, and Peter says the guardian is in trouble. In another part of campus, a door is kicked open. Quinn asks how he is. Feng is injured, but several opponents lie on the floor covered in blood. Talun is surprised by the scene. Peter asks if he defeated them all alone. Feng merely looks at him coldly and walks away without answering. Quinn asks if those people were causing trouble because of him and Peter. Feng replies that if they stay away from him, everything will be fine. Layla notices he is bleeding heavily and insists they need to take him to the infirmary, but Feng, irritated, only stares at her and keeps walking. Peter asks where he is going and Feng tells them to stop bothering him. Later, Quinn asked Peter how Feng became so different so suddenly and whether something happened earlier. Peter says he does not know. Woden was supposed to train combat with him but was taken by older students along the way, and when he returned he was already in that state. Talun asks whether those students said anything to provoke him. Peter then looks at Layla and asks what the situation with her is. Quinn replies he ran into her by chance and that she is just enthusiastic. Layla says she only asked whether he wanted dinner and invites Peter to join. Peter declines, saying he will look for Woden again and that they should enjoy the meal. Quinn asks why she is being so sudden. Layla replies she still has important questions, and it is not convenient to talk with others nearby, so they should go quickly. She will pay because nothing is more important than eating. In the infirmary, Talun asks if she is really sure about what she is doing. Layla says yes and tells him not to be shy, just careful with his movements. Quinn asks what she intends to do. She answers that this is exactly how he bit her the day before. Talun insists he was not in his right mind, that he was driven by hunger and would never consciously bite her that way, besides considering it unhygienic. Layla asks if he thinks she's dirty. He replies that is not what he means, but if the teeth are not clean, the wound can get infected. Layla then tells him to aim properly at the blood vessel. The protagonist carefully collects her blood and says he finally managed it. Layla comments that he could have simply bitten her directly, it would have been simpler. Quinn replies that it's different this way. He can store part of it for emergencies. Layla says he is surprisingly thoughtful, and Talun answers that it's just the wisdom of someone who has always had little. Layla suggests that if he is really short on money, he could sell the ability book, since even someone without recorded value in the ability book could still guarantee food and clothing for half a lifetime. Quinn replies that he would love to, but the book disappeared when he opened it. He cannot share it because it fused with his body. He says she might not understand, but that is exactly what happened. Layla asks if something like that is even possible. She explains that there are still many secrets about supernatural powers that have not been revealed. They do not even know how natural ability users create books from their own power. Perhaps the vampires of legend are just users like him. If he develops his abilities to the fullest, maybe he will truly become a real vampire. Quinn says that as long as she is happy, that is enough. She asks what it tastes like. Talun thinks that taking only that amount will not harm her body, and that now he needs to find a proper place to preserve the remaining blood. He comments that it is sweet, surprisingly pleasant, nothing metallic like he imagined. He realizes his sense of taste has changed. He understands that absorbing blood restores HP, and that depending on the target, it can enhance different attributes. He regrets not having drained the blood from the two boys the day before. Now he will need to test it on someone else to confirm his theory. Layla says that when she saw his frightening smile, she already knew he had made a new discovery. Quinn confirms and thanks her, saying he now has a new direction. He suggests returning to the library, but Layla asks to wait since he's already satisfied while she has not eaten anything yet. Talun says they should eat first and jokes that fasting blood usually has higher sugar levels. Layla asks if he can really sense that, and Quinn replies that he was just joking. Hidden nearby, Feng watches from a distance and murmurs that she forgot him far too quickly, that she belongs to him and he will not allow anyone to hurt her. Sitting on his bed later, he tells himself that Guy is dangerous, that it is visible just from his eyes, and questions why she walks around with someone like that, saying the little one will end up hurt. He keeps talking to himself, saying maybe he is exaggerating. He does not care if he hurt feelings, but that does not mean Quinn can get too close. He makes it clear that if anyone dares to touch him, they will not be forgiven. Peter enters the room and asks whether the director has returned and why he is arguing with himself. Feng asks if he came back and wonders who else he would be talking to. Peter says he heard clearly. Feng brushes it off, saying maybe he was talking in his sleep and suggests they go eat something since he is starving. Those delinquents delayed him so much that lunch turned into dinner. Peter asks what they did to him and says he seems strange today. Feng laughs and says nothing serious happened, they just irritated him a little, but he is used to it. Elsewhere, Quinn thanks Layla for the day and she replies that it was an honor and that she will see him tomorrow. Back in the dorm, Quinn announces he has returned. Peter demonstrates that he can now wrap his sword with energy. Feng comments that he did a good job. Talun is impressed and asks if he finally mastered a power. Peter confirms proudly, saying he now has real abilities. Feng remarks that the only problem is carrying that piece of metal all the time and suggests he concentrate the power and keep it stored so he does not have to search for it when he needs it. Peter, excited, asks if that is how a level 5 user acts and says Feng is amazing for using power so naturally. Feng replies that he will manage too with practice. Quinn asks if he is really fine, saying they were worried. Feng admits he sometimes gets carried away by emotions, but he will adjust. Quinn insists that it is not just that. Peter changes the subject and asks if he is dating someone. Feng simply replies that it is so. Talun gets irritated by the implication, and Peter asks directly about the girl at lunch, saying they looked very close. Feng also asks whether he is dating behind their backs. Quinn replies that it is nothing like that the classmate is just a friend. He explains that she was asking for advice on how to use beast equipment weapons, nothing more. Peter says he understands and asks if he decided to join the Beast Gear team. Talun asks what that team is. Peter explains that it is part of Practical Combat class and asks if he did not read the material. The class is divided between hand-to-hand combat and Beast Gear combat according to preference. When abilities are limited, the unarmed group focuses more on physical conditioning, while the Beast Gear team values weapon selection and usage techniques. Feng adds that if someone knows how to take advantage of a weapon's strengths, even a lower-ranked person can defeat someone higher-ranked. Peter comments that at his level it might be better to choose the hand-to-hand group. He just hopes they do not go too hard on them. Feng says he will go with him to the unarmed group so they can look after each other. Peter reminds him that their partner will be alone. Feng replies that that classmate can look after him. Quinn tells them not to worry, that he will be fine, but thinks they still do not know about his abilities, and he will need to find a chance to explain. Even so, beast suit weapons do not seem so bad. Elsewhere, the teacher announces that the first task is to choose a weapon. When supernatural power is lost, the weapon is the only thing one can rely on. A student comments that he bets the unarmed group is saying exactly the same thing, that hands are the only reliable thing until they lose their weapons too. Suddenly, an attack interrupts the conversation. It is Leo, the teacher of the beast suit weapons group, who says they will all go to hell if they continue to be distracted. Layla asks whether his two roommates were not with him. Quinn replies that they went to the unarmed combat class. Layla says it is perfect, this way they can stay together without being bothered. She comments that Irene is also there, which is surprising since she did not expect someone like her to be interested in beast armor weapons. She says that if she runs into her again this time, she will not lose. Leo explains that each person can only choose one weapon, and that they must carefully evaluate factors such as weight, power, and range before deciding. In front of them are several weapons. Quinn observes and realizes he can intuitively sense the impact each weapon will have on his basic attributes. He notices the gauntlets and realizes they can increase his attributes and enhance his attack skills, almost as if they were made for him. He decides to choose them. Leo advises him to pick something easier to use. Quinn asks why. Leo explains that although gauntlets are sturdy and can be used for defense to some extent, their range is very short. That means when facing swords, he will have to get close to the enemy to deal damage. Quinn replies that he still wants to try. Leo comments that it is a strange decision. The students who have already chosen their weapons are called to gather. Leo asks who wants to fight first. Irene raises her hand. Some students comment that it is an honor to face her. Leo asks who accepts the challenge, and several hands go up. He chooses the big guy. The boy steps into the arena and says he has heard about her, that she is very good for a freshman, but with that thin body, she will not be able to defeat him. Irene does not respond. She simply takes a fighting stance. The big guy charges with force, but Irene dodges, appears behind him, and places her sword at his neck, saying he talks too much. With no alternative, the big guy surrenders. The protagonist thinks that a user at Irene's level is truly different. There is a fundamental gap compared to the others. No wasted movement, no misstep. The fight was almost elegant, as if every gesture had already been calculated before it even happened. Layla comments that she can easily handle opponents at that level and asks why Irene still feels the need to show off. Leo says it was an excellent demonstration and then tells everyone to check their bracelets, explaining that they will automatically pair each student with an opponent of similar level. Once the pairing is complete, they can begin free practice. He warns that he will be watching and that they must stop before causing fatal injuries. Quinn looks at his bracelet and notices his opponent is level 3. He wonders whether he can already fight someone at that level. Someone shouts in the background that a level 1 against a level 3 is a joke, that at this rate he will only be able to train with people who have no ability at all. Two boys say they were also paired with level 3s and that they will watch his incredible performance first before starting their own fights, since this should end quickly. Faye tells everyone to move aside and says he will finish this quickly, that they can hurry up and start without dragging it out. Talun realizes they truly are not taking him seriously. Some people comment that it is that guy without supernatural powers, that he is also participating in practical class, and say it is lucky they were not paired with him because they were afraid of hurting him. Layla observes that his opponent is level 3 and asks whether he can handle it. Faye says it is nothing special. Some students notice Quinn's weapon and say it looks intimidating but is completely impractical, especially against that nearly 2-meter sword Faye is holding, with which he will barely be able to get close. The protagonist thinks the timing is perfect. In the last few days, he has depended on daily missions to level up, and the progress is far too slow. Now it is time to truly push himself. He says to begin. The opponent calls him showy. Faye charges first, but Quinn dodges swiftly. Faye comments that he is quite agile. The greatest power of that sword is not piercing, it is cutting. He advances again with a heavy strike. Everyone watches closely and Layla is visibly worried. Talun grips the blade with his gauntlets and realizes the defense they provide is truly impressive. Faye tells him to let go. Quinn asks if he really wants that, then he shoves his opponent back and says he is returning it. Everyone is shocked and asks if they are seeing correctly, whether Faye's weapon was just broken like that in his hands without effort. Talun immediately advances and attacks. Faye slams hard against the ground, spits blood and says he has made him angry. Leo interrupts and orders them to stop. The match is over and the winner is Quinn. Faye protests, asking if he wins just like that, saying the problem was clearly the weapon. Leo replies that there is nothing wrong with the weapons. They all pass standard tests. Quinn simply used his better. Two boys ask how that is possible, saying the sword broke too easily. Leo tells them to shut up. No one can cheat under his supervision. Layla says her classmate did a good job, and that he made her worry for nothing. Quinn replies that it is fine. It seems that weapon truly suits him. Some people comment that it is ridiculous. An experienced level 3 losing to someone without ability, that his classification must be weak. Layla remarks that he probably just made new enemies. More and more people seem not to like him. Quinn says he does not care. He just finds it a bit of a waste. Layla asks waste of what and jokes that he must be hungry again, that after this she will feed him well. Quinn asks what she is talking about. The system notifies that the task of defeating the opponent has been completed. Quinn thinks it is great, so many rewards at once. He was worried about where to store so much blood, but now he feels his health has improved significantly as well. Leo checks Talun's data and notices he has no supernatural power registered. He is surprised and comments that that boy is interesting. An hour later, Leo announces a break and informs them that next they will conduct a 2-hour team combat exercise. The protagonist comments to his partner that it seems she also won easily. Layla replies that when it comes to beast armor weapons, she fears no one. She says later they will join for team combat training. One of the boys overhears and whispers to his partner that he has an idea, asking if he wants to play another match against them in team battle. Layla asks if they cannot accept defeat. Faye tells her not to talk like that earlier he was just careless and did not use his full strength. He proposes adding a bet. If they win, they want nothing, but if they lose, each must compensate with 10 points. Layla looks at Quinn and asks what he thinks. The protagonist replies that it is a great offer. There is no reason to refuse. The boy says it is decided. Faye says they have already found their opponents and asks Leo if they can start early. Leo says yes. Layla comments that she has the feeling those two are up to something. Talun agrees maybe they just want to save face, so they must be careful. Faye says they can begin at any time. The system notifies a new mission: defeat the opponent as a pair. Random mission. The protagonist thinks that whether they win points or not, he cannot lose that experience. He finds it strange that the cauliflower head is carrying only a shield with no offensive weapon. He tells Layla that the two will probably try to engage him in close combat at the same time, so she should keep an eye on the shield one while he deals with the other first. Leo orders both teams to prepare and starts the match. They advance together. Faye says this time it will not be so easy to break his weapon. An arrow is fired, the boy dodges and says that was close. Layla says his opponent is her, and that he should not even think of sneaking toward her partner. The boy hides behind the shield and says he has been discovered, that he was too impatient. Layla notices he is not attacking or approaching and wonders what he wants. He keeps blocking and says he is almost there. On the other side, the protagonist fights Faye and notices a shift in positioning. He senses something is about to happen. The boy smiles and releases transcendental power. Bones shoot out from behind Quinn, striking him hard. At the same instant, Faye advances and slashes his stomach with the sword. Leo stares at the two. Faye apologizes and says he did not expect him not to dodge, that he was careless. Layla protests, saying that before the fight it was agreed not to use supernatural powers. The boy replies that she is being unfair, that he only used bones as a weapon. He cannot fight holding only a shield, that would be a disadvantage. Leo orders him to lower the shield and leave the room. The boy says maybe he misunderstood. Some voices comment that that was too dirty, that after deciding not to use abilities, you cannot simply ignore the rules, especially as a high-level student. Faye's sword falls to the ground. Layla looks shocked. The protagonist begins to laugh and says, if they want to play that way, then so be it. The sword is pulled out and Faye thinks that guy is crazy. Quinn's aura rises. He says then he will play until he is satisfied. Faye feels his body tremble but thinks he is still only low level. There is no reason to be afraid. Talun advances with frightening speed. Faye screams and Leo intervenes, blocking the attack, saying that is enough, they can stop. The protagonist halts immediately. Leo thinks that boy truly intended to eliminate him. Layla approaches and says there is a lot of blood, that he must not move. Leo calls for medical assistance, informing that a student was injured during combat. He declares that he does not want to see Faye in his class anymore because people who do not follow the rules are not welcome. Some students comment that Quinn's speed was absurd. The nurse asks who is injured, and Layla points to her partner. People murmur whether that speed is possible for someone without superpowers. Perhaps he awakened recently. Irene watches and thinks he is an interesting guy. Leo ends the class and reflects on what Talun is hiding. It is the first time he has seen someone wield the Blackhorn Gauntlet with such power. In the infirmary, the doctor says it is nothing serious, he just needs to rest. Layla thanks her. The protagonist asks whether the doctor found anything abnormal, and Layla says no, adding that they seem too busy to check how the wounds are healing, and that the doctor thought Professor Leo was exaggerating, saying they were only a few superficial injuries. Quinn feels relieved and says, that's good, thanks to the blood he recovered very quickly. and Layla tells him not to act so rashly next time because she was afraid he would end up fighting the professor. Talun admits he was impulsive and that it's a good thing Leo stopped him, because if things had spiraled out of control, his secret could have been exposed. Layla tells him to rest first and that she will take the clothes to be washed, but the protagonist says she doesn't need to worry, he can wash them himself. And she replies that he shouldn't be so formal because if the blood dries, it won't come out later. And Quinn remembers that his underwear is in there too. At that moment, Feng approaches and asks if it's this way, gets confirmation, and Layla says he's in room 2. Peter thanks her and asks how he is, and Layla answers that the doctor said it's nothing serious, he just needs a period of rest. Feng notices those are their partner's clothes and asks what happened, saying they should have kept an eye on him, and that the most important thing now is finding an opportunity to eliminate those people. Peter tells him to stop talking about eliminating and other nonsense, that it isn't necessary. Layla asks who he is talking to, and Peter asks if he is okay. Suddenly, Feng loses control, lunges, and chokes Layla, demanding to know what she did to his partner. Layla says she did nothing, and Peter tells him to stop and let go, that they can talk like civilized people. Feng tells him to shut up and says not to call him Woden. Layla starts channeling power in her other hand, grabs her weapon and strikes his leg, forcing him to release her. She says he irritated her and warns him that if he touches her again, it won't be so simple. Peter insists she is also their partner's friend and that she wasn't the one who did anything to him. Feng says he needs to teach that brat a lesson, but then shifts tone, saying maybe he was hasty, that he only wants to know what happened to his partner. Layla replies she has nothing to say to him, and that if he wants answers, he should ask directly in Quinn's hospital room. Peter apologizes and says he's normally not like this, that his behavior has been strange, and asks if he is all right. Feng says he is, but then starts muttering that she might be deceiving everyone, that maybe they shouldn't trust so easily, that it might be better to trust Talun first, and he says something about revenge and making something unexpected happen to that girl on the way back, despite having heard she's their partner's friend. Peter looks confused and Feng asks what it is, and he replies it's nothing. Later, Faye goes down the stairs complaining that all of that was an overreaction, that they were pulled out of class because of a level 1, saying fighting someone like that is worth nothing, and that now they lost reputation. The other boy moves quickly, locks an arm around Faye's neck, and asks if he is dissatisfied, if he wants him to remind him of the level difference between them. Faye says he didn't mean it like that, and the boy tells him he shouldn't complain, that they must find that boy tonight, because if they don't teach him a lesson, everyone will think they are easy to intimidate. At night, a voice comments that it went too far and asks how they could do that, and someone replies that they will settle the score. In the hospital, the protagonist says there's no point dwelling on it. The teacher already expelled them from class, so it shouldn't happen again. Peter agrees, saying that's right, and Feng says that next class they will go together so they can watch each other's backs. Quinn says it's fine, that he can't always protect them and that in the end they still have to rely on themselves, adding that fortunately that course is very suitable because it allowed him to learn many new things. Peter says he also learned a lot in hand-to-hand class. Talun then asks Feng what happened to his injured leg, and Feng says it's nothing, just a small scar from training, nothing to worry about, adding that first he's going to the bathroom because he's been holding it for a while. Peter lowers his voice and says that actually Feng has been acting strangely lately, his emotions swing too much, and he often talks to himself. The protagonist asks if it's happening again. Peter confirms, saying that just now he got agitated and argued with Layla because he was worried about Quinn's health, and that's how she ended up hurting his leg. Talun says it doesn't surprise him and asks how she is. Peter says it's nothing serious, she just got a little scared. Quinn sighs and says it's good she's fine. For now, he will pretend he knows nothing to avoid more trouble. Peter admits he really doesn't understand why Warden is suddenly like this, and asks if it could be some kind of psychological issue. The protagonist says that possibility can't be ruled out and that he will try to find a chance to ask the doctor later. Feng returns and says it's getting dark, asking if they shouldn't leave. Peter asks if he went to Zhengxi today. Quinn says yes and that he still needs to stay in the hospital for 2 days under observation, thanking them for coming to visit him. Feng says they'll leave first and asks why he's thanking them, after all their brothers, then asks what they want to eat tonight, that he's paying. Peter asks if he's serious and suggests rice with pork ribs. Hidden nearby, Faye says he got a scare, that it's a good thing he didn't walk in directly, he almost bumped into that big guy, and the other boy asks what he's afraid of, saying that even if they found him, the two of them could beat him, but they must act smart, luring the boy somewhere without supervision before attacking. Faye notes that he left and says they can follow him. In the corridor, some patients complain that dinner is awful, and the nurse replies, asking if they think they're still at home with someone cooking for them every day, reminding them he's only there to ensure they take their meds on time. The protagonist goes up the stairs. Faye sees that direction leads to the rooftop and says it's perfect that he will follow him, circling around to wait for the signal so they can corner him together. Faye keeps following and asks where he went. Quinn appears with a terrifying aura and asks if he is looking for him. Faye turns and Talun lunges with his mouth open toward him. Meanwhile, the other boy, Hidden, complains that his partner still hasn't sent a message and asks why it's taking so long. He climbs to the rooftop and is met with the scene. Faye is covered in blood, and the protagonist is over him. The boy shouts for him to get off. Quinn looks back with a disturbing smile. The boy attacks, but Talun dodges quickly and appears behind him. The boy thinks the movements are far too fast, tries to hit him again, and fails. The protagonist counterattacks with brutal power. The boy is terrified but tries to react, ends up jumping back after grazing his arm and says that was close, that if he didn't have that defensive measure, he might not have endured. Now he decides to attack with everything and says Quinn should be ready, only to notice that Quinn's wound has already fully healed. Talun keeps releasing his power and advances again. The pressure around them increases, and the boy realizes his bone sword has shattered. The protagonist doesn't stop attacking. The boy thinks the power and frequency of the strikes are far too high, he can't withstand it. Quinn throws him away with impressive force. Moonlight illuminates the rooftop and the system notifies that he defeated 2 opponents, mission completed, blood replenished to maximum, and displays the status bar. A nurse approaches the rooftop and asks whether Helen isn't on duty that night, wondering why she is there. Another replies that she said her boyfriend rarely returns from the front line and wanted to go out on a date, so they swapped shifts. The woman comments that she is very kind, but then the nurse looks horrified upon seeing the 2 bodies covered in blood, saying they are still breathing but need help. She calls emergency to the duty station, reporting that 2 unconscious people, suspected of having been attacked, were found on the roof and that a doctor and guards must be sent immediately. Quinn thinks that going down the stairs now means risking being discovered. They could keep hiding there, but it will be even more troublesome when the guards arrive. Hidden, the protagonist doesn't know what to do until Layla approaches and asks why he's hiding there. Quinn immediately covers her mouth and asks what she is doing there. Layla replies that she almost lost her life, saw him hiding across the street and came to look for him. Talun asks about across the street and whether she flew over, and Layla shoots back asking if he wants to try it with her himself. The guard team approaches quickly and orders everyone to spread out, observe the scene, and secure all exits. The protagonist tells her to get him out of there, but Layla asks him to wait. The 2 jump together and Quinn asks why she didn't fly earlier. Layla replies that she told him to wait, activates her ability, and begins to float. Talun is impressed and she tells him not to move. They return to the room. Layla breathes in relief and comments that she can handle 1 person, but carrying 2 is already her limit. The protagonist admits he didn't expect the ability to be used that way. Layla then asks if he can explain what is going on, and Quinn says it's a long story. Later, in the same place, Layla comments that it's those guys again, more annoying than flies, and asks what the plan is if they reveal the secret. Quinn tells her not to worry. Even if they saw his face, there's no proof it was him, and talking about it would practically mean admitting defeat, so it's unlikely they will. He says he's not worried about himself and asks what is going on between her and the director. Layla calls him a lunatic and tells him to be careful because that guy definitely has a serious problem. The next day, Talun walks thinking the situation is truly serious. He remembers what Layla said about sudden personality changes and him talking to himself, suspecting some kind of mental issue that worsens when provoked, making his actions uncontrollable. Quinn wonders whether the director has some disorder and if it could be related to supernatural abilities. Someone approaches. Talun recognizes the boy and asks if he's being too polite today and if he needs something. The boy replies that he came to apologize for what happened yesterday, says he heard him during training and that after reflecting, he realized his behavior was excessive, so he thought it best to sincerely apologize. The protagonist finds the sudden change strange. The boy continues saying it's also about last night, promises he won't tell anyone, and asks to be left in peace. Quinn asks about last night and the boy, desperate, says he saw nothing, didn't see him, and begs for a chance, promising he won't bother him again. Talun replies that it's fine. He wants nothing from him. He just needs him to disappear. The boy thanks him for sparing his life and leaves. The protagonist thinks some people only know how to bully the weak and fear the strong. Layla appears running and says she finally found him. Quinn asks what happened. She says something serious occurred. She heard that one of the people he attacked last night was finished off. Talun's eyes widen. In another room, the doctor reports that the deceased was named Faye, a first-year student. The time of death was 11:50 last night. The cause was excessive hemorrhage. The body showed multiple lacerations, likely the result of an attack by some kind of beast. The sergeant questions how that is possible, stating that school security is strict and ordinary animals couldn't enter. A hooded girl asks whether he was conscious when brought in. The doctor replies that he was already in shock and strangely was brought in twice that night. The first time was around 9 o'clock, brought by someone named Lou. At that time, both had bite marks on their necks, but when they woke, they said they didn't see what attacked them. Hours later, the nurse on duty brought him again. Shortly before that, nurses arrived with Faye on a stretcher, reporting he was found unconscious at the hospital entrance, with severe hemorrhage and unresponsive pupils. In the present, the sergeant says that makes no sense because the current wounds don't look like bites. The doctor answers that those don't. The first wounds resembled snake bites, but much larger, and for some reason healed too quickly, to the point that there are no visible marks now. The sergeant asks what she thinks, and the hooded girl replies she has no idea. First, they will summon all relevant personnel for interrogation. In combat training, everyone talks about the incident. Layla complains that those guys love gossiping behind people's backs, and the protagonist tells her not to care. Let them say what they want. Even so, she remains irritated. Leo calls him and says the military has some questions and he needs to accompany them. Quinn asks what it's about, and Leo replies, "They will explain when they get there. It's just routine questions, nothing more." Talun says he understands but wonders if that guy said something about him. Before leaving, he tells his partner not to worry, nothing will happen, and he'll be right back. He leaves with the military while Leo announces that free training starts now and everyone must be careful not to suffer serious injuries. Some students comment they already knew he was suspicious, that even the military showed up, that you really can't judge by appearances, because someone who seems useless can be ruthless and take revenge for any slight. In the interrogation room, a voice asks him to sit and says not to be nervous. If he did nothing wrong, there is nothing to fear. Quinn thinks that with the system, he truly has nothing to worry about. The hooded girl says he must have heard of a student named Faye who died unexpectedly last night. Although they don't believe a student without superpowers is responsible, considering the conflict during training, they still need to question him. She asks him to place his hand over hers. Talun obeys, wondering what she intends to do. The system notifies that an ability has been activated and the protagonist wonders if his defense failed. The hooded woman asks him to answer and whether he eliminated Faye last night. Quinn replies it wasn't him. She states he is telling the truth and ends the interrogation. Talun is intrigued, thinking her ability might bypass the system's defenses. The sergeant declares he is innocent and may return. The protagonist asks if it's already over and the woman confirms, thanks him for his cooperation, and apologizes for taking his time. Leo says he knew he was innocent and escorts him back. Quinn thinks she did more than just ask questions, but shouldn't have used a superpower. The hooded woman comments there are no more leads for now. The sergeant says that without suspects, they will close it as an accident. She questions whether it is acceptable to act so negligently. The sergeant replies they will leave it like that for now, and if the superiors want to investigate, they can return the report. If they push too hard, they might end up dealing with dangerous people. Later, elsewhere, Layla says it was a relief. Luckily, she didn't ask more questions. In an interrogation with that ability, no one can lie. Talun comments it's strange because the investigators only confirmed he wasn't the killer and released him. He is certain he only knocked that guy out and drank a little blood. He could never have eliminated him. So who did? What is happening? Layla points to one of his roommates and asks why he is with those guys. Mo asks if he thinks so too, and Peter replies yes. The protagonist says that Peter must have been threatened by them and that they should wait for him himself. Layla says to wait and that his other good friend went there as well. Feng approaches and asks if his partner has any problem. Rayleigh asks what this guy is talking about, and if he's with himself, how could there be any problem? Mo calls out to Peter. Feng says they're going to have lunch together, and Rayleigh replies that he's very annoying, asking if he didn't see that they already ate together, questioning whether he can walk with him, whether he can't have other friends, or if he started treating him like a priority. Mo says it's fine, they've already finished eating, and he can give the loofah to the classmates who still need it. Rayleigh says he's so helpful. Feng calls for his partner, and Peter says he's there of his own free will. Rayleigh tells them not to mind him and that later they should check the VR training capsules. Mo says that's a good idea and asks if he's tried it yet. Peter replies that he hasn't. Feng asks if the partner next to him saw that too and says he thought Peter was in trouble. But he said he was fine and doesn't mind him making new friends, though those people don't seem kind. Quinn says he thinks the same and that they'll properly ask him about it tonight in the dorm. Layla asks if that's really so and says she feels that he does mind others making new friends. Feng says he knows there are some misunderstandings between them and wants to apologize to her. Layla replies that there's no need and that if he truly feels sorry, he should just keep his distance from her. That's her only wish. Talun says he knows he has his own difficulties, but they're friends, and whenever he needs to, he can talk to him. Feng says he always wanted to explain things to them but was afraid they wouldn't accept it. And tonight, when Peter returns, the three of them will sit down and talk about it. The protagonist agrees. Layla says it's touching, a matter of brotherhood, and asks if he's going to tell them the secret as well. Quinn tells her to take it easy. But that night, Quinn waited until dawn and neither of the two returned. They didn't answer calls or reply to messages. Maybe something happened. Talun thinks class is about to start and that if they're still missing, he'll report it to the military. A voice tells all first-year recruits to head to the auditorium. People are confused and ask about the auditorium, whether it's some temporary event since they've never heard of it. Skipping class isn't a big deal. They wonder what's going on. Layla says not to overthink it and to go see. The protagonist says he doesn't know, but since the director and Peter didn't return last night, he's worried it's related. They enter the auditorium. The people, still confused, ask if the seniors are performing or if they're officers, saying it looks more like they're there to listen to some lecture, and that being brought to a lecture means they've been noticed, which is considered an honor. Layla says this isn't right. There isn't a single teacher there. Quinn says something is strange and that at the front are all the seniors. He wonders why Rayleigh is among the second-year students. Mo tells everyone welcome and says he prepared something special for them today, something they can look forward to. Everyone knows that the school has precious traditions, and those traditions have lasted until today because they serve a purpose. But some freshmen consider themselves superior, even try to challenge them, and today he is there to show what happens to those who refuse to obey the rules. Irene watches suspiciously. Mo says these are the consequences. Everyone looks frightened and asks what's happening and whether the instructors know about this. The protagonist and his partner look horrified. Feng has his arms tied, unable to break free, covered in blood. Mo approaches him. Someone calls out to them. Mo says not to misunderstand, he is willing to teach those who know how to listen. He reminds them there were two major turning points in the war between humans and dark elves. The mass awakening of supernatural powers and the technological advance that integrated beast crystals into weapons. What he holds is a Class 1 beast crystal. When activated, it releases power, and the higher the quality of the crystal used in the weapon, the greater the force released. He says today they will learn how to activate and use these weapons. The protagonist wonders how he dares to gather everyone in the auditorium and do this so openly, whether he is not afraid the academy will investigate and hold him responsible. At that moment, someone approaches and asks if he may interrupt. He wants to know which professor was assigned to teach them, because even if authorized, first-year students should not be learning that. He also asks what happened to the student who was tied up. Rayleigh rushes forward and strikes him with a blow accompanied by a roar, saying that pests like him need to learn to keep quiet. Mo asks if there are any more doubts, and silence takes over the place. He raises a crystal and explains that everyone must focus their attention on that sphere. Imagine it as part of their own body and infuse it with power. When the color changes, it means the activation was successful. After that, they just have to throw it and hit the target. A girl looks frightened and asks whether the target could be the classmate beside her. A voice tells her to be the first to demonstrate. The girl grabs the crystal but says she can't do it. Mo sighs and says she only has one chance. If she fails, there will be no second opportunity. He throws the crystal at her himself, and the girl spits blood while her partner reacts in panic. Mo asks what is wrong with freshmen, says he already explained everything and they still didn't understand. When he tells them to do something, they must obey. Rayleigh orders them to hurry up. A boy answers yes. Mo says he hopes he does well since everyone is watching. The boy, as he throws the stone, apologizes, but the crystal hits Feng squarely, making him spit blood. Mo laughs and says it's that simple, asking who will be next. Layla whispers that those bastards are shameless. They need to find a chance to escape and inform the mentor, maybe look for Leo first, since he wouldn't stand by in the face of this. Mo asks again if no one will volunteer, then says he will choose someone at random. Layla asks what her partner is doing, and the protagonist says to let him go first. He wants to test it himself. Mo comments that roommates from the same dormitory make things more interesting and tells them to hand the crystal to him. Rayleigh complies. Quinn smiles in a strange way. Some whisper, asking what that means. Whether they weren't friends, whether he is trying to win the sympathy of the second-year students. They say the attitude is disgusting. Mo tells him to hurry and not care about what others think. Talun analyzes the situation and concludes they need to eliminate those people as soon as possible. The most problematic is the Class 6 individual, and Rayleigh, Class 4, is also a threat. Besides that, there are 8 second-year students around, 2 of them guarding his partner. Despite the numerical advantage, they all show signs of unease. They need someone to take the lead. The protagonist assesses the situation and concludes that the strongest among them is Irene, deciding to take a risk by betting on that. Mo asks what he is waiting for. Quinn apologizes, says he hasn't gotten the hang of it yet and that he will try again. Some begin to mock him, saying people without abilities are a burden, that he can't even activate a weapon and should just give up. The system notifies Class 1 Beast, Gear Weapon, Beast Crystal Orb. Talon wonders whether it can also be activated by the system. Then he activates it. An intense energy begins to envelop the crystal. Mo's eyes widen at the glow and he realizes the orb has been fully activated. He wonders how that is possible if Quinn has no ability and is only Class 1. Quinn says that before anything else, he wants to say a few words. He asks why everyone desires supernatural powers, why they train desperately every day, if it isn't to protect the people around them. Then he hurls the sphere at one of them. Mo shouts, asking what he thinks he is doing, and orders them to grab him. The protagonist dashes off running. Rayleigh chases him, saying he truly never learns, asking if he thinks he can escape. Quinn throws the crystal again but ends up hitting other people. Rayleigh comments that the second-year students are useless. Mo orders everyone to capture him and not let him escape. Layla questions why they should obey just because he uses violence. Mo replies that in that case, he won't hold back either, and anyone who refuses can be attacked. Suddenly, an absurd power is unleashed. Everyone is startled. A voice says she didn't want to get involved but was attacked first. They ask who it is. It's Irene, already in a combat stance. One of the boys says he recognizes her, Class 5 ice user, that her element neutralizes his. Two of them charge together. Irene blocks the attack. One comments that she can manipulate water, asks about rocks, taunts her saying she thinks she can face everyone alone. Another attack comes, but the boy barely dodges. They are arrows. It's Layla declaring that Irene is not alone. The auditorium turns into chaos. Peter runs forward, consumed by guilt. Earlier, Peter had asked why they went to the auditorium instead of the virtual reality booths. Mo replied that someone had been following them the whole time and pointed at Feng. Feng apologized for involving his partner and told him to leave. Mo asked if he was trying to get away and said they had dared to touch his people before. They were there to settle scores. Feng said if there was a problem, it should be settled with him and not touch his partner. Mo threw him to the ground and said he wasn't needed there, that if he didn't want to lose his life, he should stay quiet. In the present, Peter thinks it was he who doomed his partner. He hears a voice and asks if it's Talun. The protagonist is fighting Rayleigh and asks what is so extraordinary about having a higher level, telling him not to think he feels fear because of that. Peter wonders how he can face them all head-on, whether he will keep doing this forever, whether there is nothing he can do. Quinn realizes that a Class 4 user is completely different from the previous ones. The abilities may seem common, but their application is far superior, both in close combat and localized defense. Almost perfect. Even long-range attacks are varied. Talun understands that this is the real difference in combat skill and thinks that if only someone could teach him how to properly use his own abilities. Suddenly, everything changes. The protagonist appears in another space and asks what is happening. The system notifies a request to activate combat course. Current level of unarmed combat. Quinn wonders why the combat course appeared just when he was about to face someone. A figure appears and says that time in that space does not flow like in the outside world. It welcomes him to the beginner unarmed combat course. It says it does not know how much time has passed, but if he can see it, it means he has become one of them. Talun realizes it is not a physical body but a projection and asks whether he is referring to vampires. The vampire explains that since it is the first lesson, he will teach 2 unarmed combat techniques. The protagonist realizes that no one around him can hear that voice, but that doesn't matter. He needs to learn now. The vampire says the 2 skills complement each other, one defensive and one offensive, and begins with the defensive one called Instant Step. In the real world, Rayleigh tries to strike him any way he can, but Quinn starts dodging every blow with ease. Rayleigh grows confused, asking how he suddenly managed to escape all his attacks, whether he had been hiding something all along. Talun understands that Instant Step allows him to move instantly within a 5-meter radius, making it almost impossible for the opponent to read his movement. But the energy consumption is enormous, and in his current state, he can only use it 2 more times at most. Rayleigh charges, telling him not to get carried away by his endurance, that he wants to see how long he can last. The protagonist dodges and counterattacks with a punch. Rayleigh activates reinforced defense and asks if he never learns. At that moment, Quinn recalls the vampire's words about the offensive skill, a hammer strike delivered with the fist, which can be combined with other techniques to double attack power. The pressure in the air rises. Rayleigh looks startled. The protagonist hits him squarely, launching him away with a violent impact. Everyone is shocked, asking how that is possible. The system notifies that Rayleigh has been defeated and that the mission is complete. Quinn feels that he has finally won, but soon another blow approaches and strikes him. He realizes he has lost 7 health points. The system informs him that automatic HP recovery from the blood bank is in progress. Mo appears with a whip in his hand and admits that he has caused some trouble. He doesn't understand how he managed that, but since he intervened, the game is over. The protagonist stares back and says that then he really is someone important. An explosion erupts. Quinn feels that power is terrifying. He cannot be hit again. He advances using Bloodblade. Mo smiles. The attack seems to have no effect. Mo moves as if he predicts every step and strikes him with the whip. Quinn notices something strange. It's as if Mo is always 1 step ahead. His stamina is nearly at its limit. He can only use Instant Step 1 more time, and the blood bank is almost empty. He wonders if he will lose his life there, and feels that there is nothing amusing about this at all. Layla tries to intervene but is attacked first. Someone approaches and asks why she is no longer using her arrows. She replies not to get arrogant. Feng appears and tells her to step back, says he needs to touch him quickly. Layla complains that at a time like this, he talks like a pervert. Feng shoots back asking what she's thinking, says it can be anywhere. It doesn't matter, he needs to help his partner. Layla touches his knee. Feng says it's done. Suddenly, Feng starts talking to himself again and then falls completely silent. A warrior watches, finding it interesting, asking what else he can do in that state. Layla thinks that the so-called split personality must have taken over again. Feng shouts loudly, releases his power, breaks the restraints, leaps and moves at absurd speed, causing a devastating impact. He smiles and says he is finally back. Mo comments that he freed himself quickly but should learn from his own mistakes, asking if he doesn't remember what happened the last time he faced him. Feng retorts asking whether defeating the weak is something to be proud of, saying he is not like the others, not someone easy to intimidate. Mo says he doesn't understand what he means, but it doesn't matter. He advances with the whip. Feng catches it. Mo realizes his strength is different. Feng tells his partner to leave it to him and go help the others. The protagonist warns that Mo's abilities are strange. Mo declares that he hasn't learned anything and that he will teach him again. Feng stares with a surreal aura around him and attacks. Mo dodges. Feng activates Psychic Domain. Mo counterattacks, but Feng also dodges. A warrior tries to ambush him from behind. Feng answers with a single punch to the face and tells him to get out. Mo comments that throwing beast cores at himself again shows a lack of creativity. Feng keeps launching them. Mo, dodging, states that won't work against him. The protagonist looks back and notices that Mo is dodging every attack with absurd precision, making him wonder if his ability is some kind of precognition. Feng says it doesn't matter if he can foresee what's coming. Mo is startled by what he sees as Feng controls multiple beast crystals at the same time, declaring that even if Mo knows what he's about to do, it won't be enough to stop him. Feng attacks, and it becomes clear that he had been missing on purpose the entire time. Mo blocks with his whip and says he is still too naive, that he shouldn't assume dodging is all he can do. Suddenly, attacks strike from behind Mo, blades of water slicing through the air, blood splattering across the ground. Mo lowers his head and admits he was careless, that he didn't expect him to have a hidden card, and remarks that he can use 2 abilities at once. Quinn watches in shock, wondering how that is possible, how his partner can manipulate 2 abilities simultaneously. Mo says things are getting interesting, but he isn't the only one who kept something up his sleeve. Talun asks what he means. Layla's eyes widen and she asks if that is a soul weapon, commenting that he must have already gone through a second awakening. The protagonist grows curious, and Layla quickly explains that some ability users can achieve a second awakening based on their own supernatural power, and after that they form a unique weapon within their own body. Unlike weapons forged with beast cores, a soul weapon cannot be used by just anyone. It depends on the talent to awaken it. Feng keeps attacking with both abilities, but Mo strikes him with the whip wrapped in flames. Talun realizes he needs to do something to help. Layla grabs him and tells him not to act impulsively. The level difference is far too great. He wouldn't be able to interfere. The protagonist feels his body grow heavy. He has already spent too much energy, the blood bank is practically empty, and he wonders if he will truly lose his life when his HP reaches 0. Quinn says he needs her to give him a bit of energy. Layla agrees but reminds him there are too many people around. Talun pulls her and says they should go to the back. Meanwhile, explosions continue echoing from the fight. Feng dodges, but Mo wraps the whip around him and says he wants to see where he will run this time. Feng activates the water blade, cuts through the whip, and advances. Mo looks down and realizes the weapon has been sliced to pieces. Feng comments that if this body hadn't been severely injured before, he would be in far better condition, asks whether he thinks a soul weapon is enough to handle everyone there, and tells them all to wake up. Suddenly, someone appears at the entrance and orders them to stop immediately before she loses her patience. It's a woman. Mo recognizes her and turns serious. She asks if he is ready to be interrogated. Mo replies that he is. After all, she is the sergeant responsible for team training. She orders the injured to be taken to the hospital and everyone else to return to their dormitories immediately. No one is to leave without authorization. Layla sighs in relief, saying it's a good thing the military showed up, and asks about his wound. The protagonist replies it's already healing, nothing serious. Layla insists they need to slip away in the middle of the confusion before being taken for examinations. Peter says he will take his partner to the hospital. Feng comments that he was the one who went to get the sergeant. Peter apologizes and admits it was his fault for dragging him there. Feng asks why he is crying, saying it's only a broken arm, not the end of the world. Peter glances back and sees Mo with a dark expression, then quickens his pace. Feng asks what's wrong, and Peter says it's nothing. Later, elsewhere, Mo remarks that it was bad luck. So many people witnessed everything and pretended not to see, and only the sergeant appeared to stop it. Now he himself might be disciplined. A young man replies that everything will be fine. It is General Duke, leader of the second year. He states that as long as he is there, no one will dare do anything against Mo. Mo says he hopes so. He was only following orders, but if the higher-ups find out, the general crushes the glass in his hand and asks whether he is questioning his authority. Mo apologizes, saying he misspoke. Duke responds that he is smart, and if he learns to be obedient, no one will touch him. But first, they must ensure no one learns their secret. Mo states that no one knows. The general declares that he will handle matters with the academy administration, while Mo must take care of his own part, mentioning that he heard it was a first-year student who reported everything. Mo replies not to worry because he already knows exactly what to do. In the academy office, a voice announces that the meeting is officially in session. Leo, Dr. Haley, Faye, and Nathan are already seated, and the one presiding states that the purpose is to discuss how to handle the violent incident involving second-year students, assuming everyone has read the full report. One of those present asks to speak and says he would prefer to start with the issue of punishment, since the second year falls under his direct responsibility. Duke immediately replies that he sees nothing that warrants punishment. He states that if the report was truly read carefully, it is clear the conflict began with a first-year student, and that if he had not attacked an older student first, there would have been no retaliation. He emphasizes that this is a military academy and that students must learn to fight with their own fists, because on the battlefield, survival is defined not by speeches but by strength, then asks Nathan for his opinion. Nathan responds that he does not mind harsher fights between students, but he will not accept second-year students giving arbitrary orders to freshmen, acting as if they are superior simply because they have been there 1 year longer, something no one has officially granted them, and he asks whether Duke agrees. Duke says he does, and that he will take additional measures to prevent future conflicts. The head concludes that since there are no formal objections, the case will be temporarily archived and shifts the focus to the death of a first-year student. He declares that he can tolerate injuries, but he will not allow someone to lose their life in the academy under obscure circumstances, and warns that anyone with clues must report them immediately. If the responsible party is identified, they may be executed on the spot. After the meeting, patrols begin circulating around the academy. The protagonist watches from the window and remarks that, apparently, the incident truly caught the administration's attention. Feng says patrols are useless and that absolute security only exists when one has the strongest fist, reflecting that he recovered far too quickly for someone who almost lost control. Quinn advises discretion, reminding them they have drawn too much attention and could become targets again. Feng asks what he is afraid of, and says that getting beaten only means they are not strong enough yet, and that when they stand at the top of the pyramid, no one will dare intimidate them. Talun agrees that inner strength is fundamental, but thinks that merely learning new techniques is not enough. He needs real combat experience and would like to activate that tutorial mode again. Feng suggests they go into the city, buy supplies, and test the new virtual reality training capsules. The protagonist admits that is exactly what he wanted, since simulating real combat could accelerate his growth. Feng asks why he is hesitating to go, and Peter says he will go too. Quinn notices that Peter still has not overcome the last incident and decides he needs to help him regain his confidence. Later, the three stroll through the city, go to the movies, eat popcorn, and casually comment on the film until someone calls out to Peter. The boy introduces himself as Errol and says he has been looking for him to talk. Peter confirms he has time. Fang assures him he can call them if he needs help, and the protagonist reinforces that he does not need to be afraid. Errol says his friends have been saying unpleasant things about the others, and Peter replies that it is a misunderstanding, that he forgot to speak with him earlier and suggests they talk and meet later at the dorms. Funk says that is fine, they will see him at night, and Quinn tells him to enjoy himself. Errol claims his friends are understanding and that they can talk somewhere else. Shortly after, away from there, Peter is surrounded and beaten, while they say he knows very well why he is being hit. Errol states that it is entirely his fault for reporting them to the instructor, and that because of that, everyone is now being punished, repeating that the responsibility lies with him. Peter, lying on the ground, says it does not matter, that this will be the last time because he has decided that no matter what happens, he will not betray his two partners again. Errol replies that he is still naive, that he clearly does not understand the situation yet, and asks who gave him the right to choose. Peter's eyes widen when his finger is bent until it snaps, and his scream of pain echoes through the hallway. Errol leans over him and asks what he says now, ordering him to keep doing exactly what they tell him. Peter, gasping, answers that he will not. Errol strikes him again without hesitation, and Peter screams even louder. One of the other boys comments that maybe they should gag him since he usually barely speaks, but when it comes to screaming, he seems to have plenty of voice. Errol laughs and says he had been walking around as if he were untouchable, then tells Jerry to step forward and get to work to fix his hand. Jerry kneels and activates his healing power. The bone slides back into place, The broken fingers realign and the skin closes as if nothing had happened. Errol asks if he is fully awake now and orders another round, saying it will continue until he is satisfied. Meanwhile, at the virtual reality training center, the secretary informs them that each hour costs 10 points and asks if they would like to reserve. The protagonist calculates mentally and says his resources only cover 1 hour. Feng tells him not to worry, swipes his card, and says he has more than enough money. Quinn admits he feels bad always depending on him, and Feng replies that between friends there is no need for formalities. The secretary confirms their registration and directs them to modules 23 and 24. As they enter, Talun comments that it is pure luxury. Feng explains that the capsules connect directly to the military server, allowing them to simulate battles against students from other academies. For full access to the civilian network, they would need to purchase an independent station, and he does not even want to imagine the price. The invitation is accepted and the connection begins. The protagonist observes how different everything feels and thinks that this is how the rich train. Energy flows through the virtual environment. Feng appears wearing a mask and armor, and Quinn barely recognizes him. Feng confirms that he customized both avatar and voice using points, even bought new skins, and summons one of them. Talun stares and asks what kind of creature that is. Feng laughs and says it is cute, that he can change it if he wants. Quinn replies that he does not need to spend money on him, but Feng insists that it could be useful when they do not want to reveal their identities. They decide to watch a few fights before jumping into combat. The scene loads, an arena materializes with multiple map options and real player matches. Quinn thinks he could train there all the time, if not for the cost, and reminds himself that he cannot rely on his friend's money forever. Elsewhere in the academy, Peter continues to be beaten. Errol says he will give him a chance, but he needs to think carefully before answering. If he does the job, he will not be punished. He must learn to obey like a good dog. The other attacker once again grabs his healed finger. Peter hesitates, eyes wide. Errol asks if they have reached an agreement and says it would have been easier if he had accepted from the start. He claims there are rewards for those who comply, transfers 100 points to him, and says they expect good news. The two walk away laughing. Peter remains alone, crying. Later, in the dormitory, Feng asks if their partner still has not returned. The protagonist tells him to be quiet and notes that he already seems to be asleep. Feng finds the timing strange, but Quinn says maybe he is just tired and suggests they rest as well. Talun looks at his apparently sleeping roommate and thinks he will be fine. Back in the virtual space, the protagonist studies the interface displaying user ID, blood evolution, and appearance options. He selects a different look. The system connects an opponent and loads the arena model. Quinn decides to test how his abilities function there. A notification appears. Dual Blade Warrior, match confirmed. The opponent greets him and asks if he can allow a superior to watch. Talun replies that he does not mind and recalls that he has watched veteran matches before. The warrior informs the superior that the presentation is about to begin. The countdown ends, both assume combat stances, and the fight starts. The opponent activates a skill immediately. The protagonist dodges and comments that opening with an ability is bold, so he will not hold back either. He unleashes his own power, lunges forward, and strikes his opponent. The superior, watching, shows surprise and asks what kind of red attack that was. What strange ability it is. Talun charges again, but the warrior intercepts the blow and slices the attack in half, the impact echoing across the virtual arena. The protagonist feels his hand vibrate as if he had punched a steel plate and wonders whether there is hidden armor beneath that avatar, quickly concluding that it is possible since real-world equipment can be synchronized inside the simulation. Even so, there is one advantage there because in that space, no real sun exists to limit him. The warrior smiles and asks if he truly thought blocking would be that simple, declaring that victory is his. Quinn grabs the arm holding the sword, twists his body, appears behind his opponent, and strikes, stating that he is the one who won. The warrior's eyes widen as he says that is impossible, while the superior watching from above comments that it is interesting. The defeated fighter sighs and calls himself useless, but the superior tells him not to be discouraged, explaining that the difference was pure agility. The system grants the reward for the victory, and Talun realizes that defeating someone inside the training capsule also yields experience and that all his abilities function normally there. The superior leaps into the arena and asks whether he would accept facing him. The protagonist confirms that it is truly him, and the man replies yes. Quinn analyzes the situation and understands that his attacks may be nullified, but that is exactly why the capsule exists, to confront opponents like this. He accepts, determined to fight to his limit. They take their stances, and the match begins. Talun attacks first, yet the superior remains motionless and unharmed. The protagonist realizes he put all his strength into that punch and still caused no damage. Suspecting a localized hardening ability, the superior remarks that retreating so soon shows excessive caution, says he must have already understood the body strengthening skill. then summons his weapon and advances. Quinn blocks, but the superior smiles and alters the weapon's form mid-swing. Talun attempts to dodge but is hurled violently to the ground. The superior admits that his strength is impressive, yet his practical experience is still insufficient, and asks whether he wants another round. The protagonist answers, of course, since that is the purpose of training. The superior says he likes the determined gleam in his eyes and that it will be interesting to watch him fail again. The fight resumes. The superior gathers energy in his hands and releases his power, and Quinn charges as well, realizing that even with a full block he is not fast enough. The man declares that the warm-up is over and that now he will attack seriously. Talun activates Instant Step, vanishes from sight and appears behind him. The protagonist slams him down with brutal force. The warrior watching from above shows concern. The smoke clears, and the superior admits he was almost crushed, acknowledging Talun's impressive strength, but states that now he will take the confrontation seriously. The battle intensifies, and the spectator comments that he has never seen anyone maintain a stalemate with the senior for so long. The protagonist lunges again, and the superior says that tactic will not work. Quinn replies that he knows, yet unleashes a devastating strike anyway. When the superior seems about to fall, he braces himself against his sword planted in the ground, steadies himself, and says he is a good kid for managing to break through his defenses. But unfortunately, he has lost. The protagonist feels the cut across his body and understands the gap in level between them. The superior says he awaits their next encounter, and the training session ends. Quinn exhales in relief, convinced that growth only comes from facing strong opponents. Instant Step and the hammer strike drain far too much energy, and he must solve that weakness. On the other side, the warrior asks whether that blood user is very strong and whether he belongs to the same academy. The superior replies that probably not, because if he were someone prominent, he would remember him. Sam comments that an interesting opponent has appeared and that he is already looking forward to that year's military championship. Elsewhere, someone asks whether it is working. Talun appears wearing a mask, hat, and dark glasses, saying it seems to help and that it is better than exposing himself directly to the sun. Layla states that at least now they know sunscreen is useless, that he still needs full protection from sunlight, and laments that no lightweight material exists capable of completely blocking the rays. The protagonist agrees and recalls the superior's cloak armor, imagining it must be crafted from special beast material. If he could obtain something similar, perhaps he could create the ideal suit for himself, and he begins to wonder where he might find such rare materials. Elsewhere, the professor gathers the class and announces that he has something important to say. Preparations for the portal have been completed, and the time has finally come for them to explore outer space. For most of them, it will be their first time, so they must read the manual carefully. The students flip through the books, and Dell explains that he will not go into too much detail, but distinguishing the colors of the portals can mean the difference between life and death. Green portals lead to already explored planets where human shelters exist. Orange portals lead to underdeveloped planets with a few shelters, but also high-level alien creatures and beasts, making the environment extremely dangerous. As for the red portal, the only recommendation is not to enter, since there are no shelters and the place is not governed by the treaty between humans and the Dalki, meaning that if someone loses their life inside, no one will come to rescue them. He concludes by saying the expedition will take place next week and that they must form teams of 5 today and submit the list. Layla immediately declares that she will team up with him. No discussion. Talun says he does not mind, but Varden will certainly be by his side and asks if that is acceptable to her. Fung agrees and also asks if that is fine. Layla replies that as long as the big guy does not cause trouble, she can leave the past behind. Fung comments that it seems they can get along, and Layla tells him to keep his distance. At that moment, Irene approaches and states that she wants to form a team with them. They ask with whom exactly, and she points at Varden. Fung explains that he has already decided to join the group and says that if she wants, she can join as well. Layla looks confused, and Irene asks who exactly they think they are. Layla snaps back, reminding her that they fought together in the entrance exam and in the arena. Irene coldly replies that she sees no reason for him to associate with weak and insignificant people, saying that teams formed by individuals of the same level achieve better results. Layla bristles and asks if she's provoking them. Fung apologizes and says he does not care much about scores. He just wants to enjoy school. Irene observes that if he speaks that way, he is including his own team in that definition, and asks whether Peter also falls into that category. Fung answers yes, that he is indispensable, and the protagonist reinforces that no one will be excluded. Irene says she will think about it and that with 3 already decided, the combat configuration must be adjusted. She will give her answer later. Fang tells her to hurry because time does not wait. The protagonist comments that she seems overly cautious and asks whether the exploration will be graded. Layla confirms that it will, explaining that there are 3 possible destinations, each with distinct terrain. Kaladi, Armpel, and Bartney, and they must prepare accordingly. Quinn thinks that Kaladi has a predominantly desert climate with rare magical creatures, including dragons, and imagines that perhaps there he could obtain materials for beast armor. Meanwhile, Errol complains that Peter is late. Peter says he was stuck in a group discussion and apologizes, trying to avoid being followed. Errol punches him as punishment and states that if he had been 2 minutes later, he would have lost a finger. Peter apologizes again. Errol tells him to move because Duke does not like to wait, and when he gets irritated, everyone suffers. Peter asks who Duke is, and someone answers that he will find out soon. In another room, the general declares that some people have gone too far, but as long as he is there is no reason to fear. He says he has read Peter's file and knows that he developed an earth ability with penetration and immunity after enrolling in the school. Duke places several books on the table and comments that he also knows Peter has been saving money to acquire certain resources and escape level 1. If he wants power to strike back, he can help him change, as long as he works for him. Peter realizes he has practically no choice. The general warns him not to question the decision because the portal journey is approaching and every year there are accidents, students who disappear on other planets. He states that luck is part of strength and that the student who will disappear that year will be him. Elsewhere in the academy, Feng declares that it is decided they will follow the orders and include those 3 on the team as well. Irene tells them to settle it quickly. The protagonist observes that after a full day of discussions, they have finally reached an agreement, acknowledging that she is indeed authoritarian. Layla admits she does not like her much, but recognizes that with Irene on the team, their chances of earning a high score increase significantly. She says she will not have dinner with them that night because before the expedition, she needs to stop by the weapon shop to check her bow and arrows and make sure everything is perfect. Feng says that in that case, he will go along too, commenting that she finally let her partner go and that the 3 of them should head out, since it has been a long time since they had dinner together, and that tonight he will pay for something really good. Quinn asks about Peter. Feng replies that he does not know. He said he would step out for a while and has not come back since, but Talun has just received a message from him. The protagonist's eyes widen as he reads it. At the portal site, Quinn breaks the door open and rushes inside looking for his partner. Peter is lying on the ground. Talun asks if he is okay, and Feng tells him not to move because he looks seriously injured. Peter says they were there. Feng asks if it was those same guys from before and promises to finish them off. The protagonist notices something strange. Peter explains that they saw him alone, grabbed him, beat him, and left, and that there are no cameras there, so there is no proof to show the teacher. Feng says he will go after them immediately. Quinn watches closely and realizes that his body does not look injured enough for someone who supposedly fainted like that. Feng asks if he can walk and says they will take him to the infirmary. Talun wonders whether there could be internal injuries that are not visible, but something does not add up. The protagonist suddenly widens his eyes and shouts to leave him, saying it is a trap. Feng asks what trap, but Peter shoves Quinn straight into the portal. Feng freezes in disbelief, and Peter says he is sorry. Feng explodes in anger, asking if he has any idea what he has done, if he knows what it means to push someone in there. Peter apologizes and says he was forced, that others made him do it. Feng pushes him hard and says being intimidated is no excuse, asking if he thinks he is the only one who has ever suffered, if he believes Talun was never threatened, if he thinks he himself did not feel fear when he was tied to a pillar. He says getting beaten, bleeding, or being hurt does not matter. As long as you are alive, you can keep fighting, but he chose to send his own friend to the end. Peter says he tried to resist but is too weak. Feng tells him to shut up. The voices inside him begin to echo, emotions growing more intense, and he says he has to endure and not let them slip out. Feng walks toward the portal. Peter asks what he is doing and tells him to stop. Feng replies that it is for his own good, and that he had better pray Talun does not come back alive, because if he does, he himself will settle the score. Peter is devastated. Feng steps into the portal. On the other side, explosions of multicolored light flash. The protagonist feels his face burning, falls to the ground, and coughs up blood. Everything around him is destroyed. Talun thinks he really was pushed inside and wonders where he is and how he can return. Ahead, something is moving. He recalls that in movies there is always someone curious enough to investigate, but this is not that case. A red portal means a planet with no human presence. Extremely dangerous. He needs to get out of there as soon as possible. A monster charges! Quinn cuts off the creature's arm. The pressure increases as others approach. One bites his leg, another tries to grab his arm. Talun pulls away and counterattacks with force. After an intense sequence, he manages to defeat them. He thinks it is fortunate that it is night. The system notifies that he has defeated a beginner beast, the first time eliminating a creature in that place. A new ability appears, but despite the excitement, the most important thing is to survive. hunger tightens in his stomach. The system warns that consuming 1 milliliter will result in the loss of 1 health point. Talun decides to move forward even while starving. He does not want to drink the blood of those creatures. It is good that the blood bank is full, but if he keeps using abilities carelessly, it will not last long. He needs to find a solution. Meanwhile, at the academy, guards comment on Sergeant Faye's tense expression. Nathan is in a room and says he has almost finished organizing everything. Faye enters and states that something serious has happened. Nathan, irritated, says he was just about to complete the work. Faye cuts him off and informs him that 2 first-year students have crossed the portal. Nathan replies that she is exaggerating, that they only need to send 2 people to retrieve them. Faye then says they crossed the red portal. Nathan then asks where the guards were to allow something like that to happen. Faye explains that it happened exactly during the shift change. No one was at the post at that moment. Nathan slams his hand on the table and says that is why he insists on installing surveillance cameras there. He asks who the 2 missing students are. Faye answers that they are Talun and Feng. Nathan stares in silence for a moment and asks in disbelief if it is those 2 again. Faye says she suspects someone did it on purpose, and Nathan replies that he could tell who it was even with his eyes closed, but without concrete proof he cannot act. Faye asks what they should do now and whether they need to notify the families immediately. Nathan says to buy time. He just checked the first-year files. Quinn is an orphan, so that part is not a problem. But Feng's family is different, very different. They will call an internal meeting. Some specialists need to handle this before the situation spirals out of control. In another room, Nathan states that everyone has probably heard the rumors. 2 promising students have disappeared and they need to decide the next step. Faye says this is not a simple disappearance and that they should immediately postpone the first-year exploration activity. Dell counters that they crossed a red portal, which means there is no hope. Nathan responds coldly that he does not care about the other boy, but Feng must be brought back, even if it is only the body. He does not intend to face his family empty-handed. They need answers. Leo informs them that the likely destination is a planet called Proletariat, abandoned about a year ago. At first, there were shelters built by humans, so part of the territory may not be completely hostile. The doctor asks why it was abandoned. Leo explains that the shelters began to be attacked by alien creatures, far more powerful than expected. The planet had been dominated by weak, rat-like creatures known as rat claws, annoying but manageable until about a year ago when polar night set in, and the shelters were successively attacked by unknown entities, forcing total evacuation. Haley comments that they never even managed to identify the creatures responsible, and given that, the chances of survival for the 2 are minimal. Dell interrupts and states that in practice they are already dead, asking if there is still anything to be done. Nathan answers that they will conduct a rescue, and they have half a day to prepare. Dell protests that it is a red portal. Nathan cuts him off, saying he's not asking for opinions. It is an order. They must recover Feng, otherwise they will face the fury of the Blade family, and that is more dangerous than any creature on that planet. At the academy, students comment that the exploration has been postponed. 2 people disappeared in the portal chamber, Feng and Quinn. Layla overhears and asks how they know that. The boy replies that he heard teachers talking and used his listening ability to confirm it. Layla goes after Peter and says she heard the 2 disappeared, asking if it is true. Since he shares a room with them, he must know something. Peter hesitates. Layla notices that he starts backing away too quickly and realizes he knows something. She chases after him, determined to find out. She runs down the corridor, glancing around trying to guess which direction he took. Ahead, she finds Irene, who says she's not interested in his personal matters and asks where they went. The boy replies that he already said he does not know anything and questions why they keep insisting. They have their own legs. How could he know where they went? Layla watches the scene and finds it strange that Irene is pressuring those guys. She asks if Peter ran past there. Errol says yes, that he fled in a hurry and that at that pace he probably already left the city. Layla snaps back, telling them to stop pretending. They must have manipulated Peter into doing something. Errol says he does not know what she is talking about and that she can think whatever she wants. They are too busy for that. At that moment, Irene activates her ice ability. Errol notices, but it is too late. The cold pins their legs and necks to the frozen ground. Irene says she does not want to waste time with games and orders them to tell everything they know now. Guys, if you enjoyed the video, leave a like, comment, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss new content. Thank you.